Hey, True Believers. Today we are going over Detective Comics 591. And I wanted to go over a Batman book today because of the sad news that we got over the weekend about the passing of Neil Adams. I wish that I'd had a Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams book to go over, but those are still in storage. So I have Detective Comics with me today. So I wanted to do that to just celebrate Batman and what him, Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil brought back to the character, essentially. So with that said, this was an interesting take. It's a self-contained story. Before we dive into what I mean by that, let's talk about who made the book. This is Alan Grant and John Wagner, writers, Norm Breyfogle doing the art, Todd Klein letterer, Adriana Roy doing the colors, and there's everyone else working on the book. And then right here, as you can see, Dennis O'Neil, editor. So at least we kind of have that connection to Neil Adams that way. Batman was created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane. And before we really dive into the book, what's important about Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams that I do want to talk about is I was on TikTok and they've been having these short segments of these interviews with Neil Adams. And Neil was talking about how when he was drawing Batman, how he essentially went back to how Batman originally looked with his blue cape, the blue uniform, the flowing cape. And he said, all I really did is I didn't really recreate Batman. I just expounded on what he originally was supposed to be. And then he said, what really helped my artwork pop, and I'm just paraphrasing here, he said something to the degree of the stories that Denny O'Neil wrote, because they were down to earth. He said, and this is something I didn't know, he said that Denny O'Neil was a reporter. So, reporters are supposed to report the underside of the earth, or the earth, you know what I mean. Stories talk about murder, mayhem, etc., so forth. And that's why all of his stories were so grounded and real, and why they mean something. And both of them working together just really reinvigorated Batman. And if you watch the little segment he does on his creation of Ra's al Ghul, and yes, it is Ra's al Ghul, not Raish. He says Ra's al Ghul, and I've been saying Ra's al Ghul for years. So when I heard Raish, I was like, ugh, that sounds awful. Anyway, he said they had to do something, something kind of grounded. They needed a Moriarty. Like Moriarty to Sherlock, and that's how they came up with Ra's al Ghul. And they said once they were able to get Ra's going off the ground and made it a little more realistic, then they were able to kind of add in like the Joker and stuff, to the more colorful villains of the olden times. And just because of what they were able to establish, that's why all of their stories are really what kind of projected all of what we read now in modern times. Again, here, Alan Grant really was one of my favorite writers of Batman, because he took, again, the idea of what Denny and Neil Adams did, and as you can see right there, the blue uniform, just more pronounced. And this is the artwork, of course, I'm talking about, but here, this is Batman dropping in on thugs doing a cocaine deal down to earth. So you can see the influence of what those two powerhouses brought to Batman. So to kind of finish it, I hope they both rest in peace, and thank you for what you brought to the Batman mythos. Now continuing on, gorgeous artwork here. And again, let's kind of back up the train. We get a read up of, they're talking about ancient gods, and it's very poignant what's read here. And as we get into Gotham, he says his land, his people. But he is far from home now, and a place surely made by ancestors with madness running in their veins. If there ever was a dream time here, it's long since been swallowed by the spirits of the night. So we're introduced to this character name, and if I pronounce this wrong, feel free to make fun of me down in the comments, but I believe it's Umbaluru, and he's an Aborigine. He's coming to Gotham because Someone here has taken something that belongs to his people, his land, and he is seeking revenge. He has from what he understands, he has the Earth Mother's blessing. And then that's where we kind of cut away and we see Gotham's vigilante and seeking justice for his people. And again, this is where we get the cocaine break-in, and it's just gorgeous, gorgeous work. One thing that I have noticed about Norm Breyfogle, again, I'm horrible at pronouncing names, is his run on Batman. I noticed he's very much into the action line. The action lines, the very sleek jaggedness, almost kind of like Todd McFarlane in a sense. But I mean, look at this new Batmobile here. I don't know. It looks great, and I love when artists always bring a new look to the Batmobile. I mean, it is a little boxy, but still, I noticed that he's just very much into those pronounced, sharp edges. And another thing is he's very much all about, and I don't know if this was Alan Grant or if this was Norm, but they're very much about those Dutch angles that you can see here where you're kind of going down and looking up at them. A lot of panels, and not just this issue, like a lot of them where they were working together or if the artist was on the book, very much a lot of those Dutch angles. Now here, we're introduced to, what's his name? Something Rollo, I can't remember his first name now. Kerry Rollo. He's an antiques collector. They're supposed to be doing a charity thing at $500 a head. That is pricey. But anyway, it's all original artwork. And here we see the Aborigine power bone. And it's supposed to, what does it say exactly? Rollo says, "I'm afraid the secret is lost in the midst of time, Mr. Wayne. There's garbled legends that the bone can foretell the future, that can help its tribe in the time of danger. You know, the usual sort of thing." And so he actually gets a premonition, and he does not know how to take it. And while that's happening, we go across town, and I like how it says the prey is tracked. And here, I'm not going to repeat this. Let me just say the next couple of panels may offend some people. I'll let you read, pause and read them at your convenience, but this would never fly in a modern comic book. So here's the first panel. There's the second panel. And there's the third panel. Yeah, I was taken back. I was like, wow, that's intense. And I think it's because they were trying to make these guys out to be the bad dudes since they were the ones that procured the power bone, essentially illegal. Now, again, when I was going back to talking about the candid shots, if you look at this panel of the Aborigine breaking into the gym to kill these guys, tell me that you do not feel that inspiration of when they were introducing Tim Drake. Was it Tim Drake? Yeah. Tim Drake is Robin, and there's that cover. I can't remember what issue number of Batman it is, but Batman's being hung upside down. I believe it's by Poison Ivy, and the windows are flung open, and we see a Robin strewn in darkness. This very much looks like that panel just a few years earlier. So I can see his style, which is cool, but it's kind of funny how you're able to start after a while picking up artists' signatures. And his was very much these action lines, the Dutch angle. Now, this guy, his name is Jim, and this is Jim's Jim. Rollo says he wants the power bone by any means possible. And you guys can kind of assume what happens and why Umbaru here is on his mission to redeem his people and retrieve the artifact that rightfully belongs to him and his land. And again, the paneling, you spilled blood on the land. You have violated a sacred place. The Earth Mother demands you pay the price. And it's the use of shadows that he's ready for his vengeance. Just intense work here, guys. So Batman sees the crime scene of that murdered guy, Jim. and is like, okay, well, what's going on here? Maybe since they kind of figured out that it has something to do with Aborigine artifacts, he's like, well, maybe Rollo has some answers. Well, this is where the crescendo happens. Umbaru wants penance for what's happened to his people. And if you read here, you can see the hurt and the hatred in his voice of what's happened in his lands. And Batman busts in and he goes, I don't care who sent you. Nobody starts dispensing his own justice in the city without me getting involved. Because he tries to tell Umbaru here, he goes, this man may be guilty, but he needs to be done, he has to be brought in by the law, not murder. And Umbaru says, it's your law, not mine. And again, this is where some moral ambiguity happens. Batman's not quite sure how to feel about the way this case wrapped up. But overall, for a self-contained story, there's a lot to be said. Great action, great artwork, everything that you'd expect from a comic book. Now, another thing about this issue that I thought was interesting is it says Casebook, the Batman. So I'm wondering if this is supposed to be like a story that was past tense that Bruce wrote for his case books that he keeps throughout the years, and this was just one that he was reflecting on. Either way, I love when a self-contained story can just hit and make you want more, even though a lot of the times you're not going to get more because it's a self-contained story. So if you guys have enjoyed what you've seen, or you just want this for the the sake of this is the book of its time, which was October 1988, please support your local comic shop and pick up a copy. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little bat bell next to subscribe, I really would appreciate it. Help the club channel more than you could possibly know. And that way you guys will get notified, come to the channel, and we love talking with you all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I will make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have a bat-tastic day, and happy hunting, true believers.